All right, good afternoon, everyone. We are waiting for our e-boardroom system to do its thing before we can log in, so we will call the meeting to order as soon as we can get into the system. So thank you for your patience. Y'all can keep talking. All right, apparently it's going to take a minute to get the system up, so we're going to go ahead and go and start the old-fashioned way. So welcome to the April 27th, 2022 meeting of the Finance Executive Committee. I am Alex Wan. I'm chair of the committee. I'm joined by my colleagues. To my far right, Liliana Bakhtiari. To my right, Mr. Howard Shook, who's also vice chair. To my left, Councilmember Jason Dozier, and to his left, Councilmember Jason Winston. With that, we constitute a quorum. This meeting is officially called to order. I want to acknowledge we're also joined by, are we good? By our Chief Financial Officer, Mohammed Bala, from the City Law Department, Amber Robinson, and then also our team over there, Santana Kempson Wright and Ms. Wasona. Okay, so I'm told that we can get in now. We'll go ahead and keep moving on. First item is adoption of the agenda. Colleagues, we actually have to amend the agenda today. We do have a walk-in paper that will be the budget FY23 budget shell ordinance. So with that, I'll accept a motion to amend the agenda.
I'll move amendment.
Second.
Motion from Dozier, second from Bakhtiari. And can we do the vote electronically? Or should we take a voice vote?
One moment, we're making sure everyone's signed in. Can we do it? The vote is open. The vote is closed.
All right, 5 yeas, 0 nays. The agenda is amended, and now I need a motion to adopt the agenda as amended.
So moved.
It's going to be a meeting. Motion by Shook, second by Bakhtiari. Gets another penny for that second. Could you please open the vote, please?
The vote is open.
And I see we're being joined by Councilmember Michael Julian Bond.
The vote is closed. 5 yeas, 0 nays. The agenda has been adopted as amended.
Can you take a voice vote for Mr. Bond since he's there?
Yes, Councilmember Bond. Thank you.
All right, 6 yeas, 0 nays. The motion carries. The amended agenda is adopted. Next item is approval of the minutes from the previous meeting. Is there a motion?
Motion.
There's a motion from Bakhtiari, second from Winston. If there's no further discussion, let's open that vote.
The vote is open. everyone please vote? The vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays, motion carries. The minutes are approved from last meeting. All right, that takes us to public comment. If you hadn't already before the beginning of the meeting, there is a station over there to sign in. I believe staff is going to populate my screen with who has signed up to speak. Remind you that you please come up to the podium. You'll have 3 minutes. There will be a clock on the screens. As the time starts getting into the red, if you'll try and wind your comments down. All right. Boardroom is our friend today. There we go. I see the names now. All right. So the first speaker is Nidra Deadweiler. Nidra Deadweiler. Going once. Nedra, is it? No, going twice. All right, we'll move on to, it looks like Abdul Hakim Mohammed. Is that, do we have the right list up?
I think this is from yesterday's.
Could this have been? I'll keep going. Ann Hill Bond? Okay.
Councilmember, we're checking our public speaker list.
Okay. I do see a name that I recognize. That I believe I saw her here, and that's Gina Pagnotta. Yeah, why don't you go ahead and come up while they... No, I didn't miss it. I saw you. That's what I'm saying. I recognize the name here, and I saw you out there. So why don't you go ahead and come up, and hopefully when you are finished, they'll have figured out the system.
This being different program, platform, I have people that was going to give me time. Is that how you were still doing it?
Yes. So...
Yes, for any of the individuals that were signed up previously, we have a few others. Do you know exactly who was going to give you time, Ms. Pagnotta?
Right here.
So if you could speak your name, or say your name so that they can check it off the list. I'm sorry, what was that? Okay, Ebony Walton, I see that. Craig Ingram, I see him. Shawanda Wilson, very good. So that gives you 12 minutes then.
Maybe I won't need it, but then you know how I am. He said, I hope not. But anyway, I'll take you to church, and you know I will. To start off, greetings, and I'd like to give out, if you don't mind. From PACE, welcome aboard. It's a little pin to recognize us, so you see us coming. Same face of the shirts. Okay. Greetings, Finance Exec Committee and the new members on the board. Welcome. Congratulations. Thank you. I'm Gina Pagnotta Murphy. I'm president of PACE. And just want to say it's really a new platform for me, because before we used to only come up and speak on the subject matter when you all are talking about it. So I will be speaking beforehand that you get to the subject. One of the things that we wanted to talk about was the E911 situation, that I understand what brought and prompted us to come to this meeting, that you had asked for some investigations of what's going on and make a presentation so that hopefully we can come to a resolutions or resolves. And if you can't get it done today, then I'm asking for a thorough working session with the appropriate professional parties to be at the table so that we can itemize what's needed, what we're requesting to get that done. Basically, for E911, PACE, outside of the other internal problems against and for employees, we're asking that the city continue to look at separating this center and lead it by an individual commissioner who will be asking or be able to respond directly to council or to the mayor's office, not through a layer of APD where the chief, or whoever it is, may not get all of the issues and resolutions at that time until it's on the news or until we're coming to you fussing about it. And we think this will be a better way that E911 can be represented of what's going on in that center like all other department leaders do when they have briefings to you. So that's the main one. Number two, PACE is requesting increases and COLA increases for you to look at, to think about. It's time, it's overdue. We don't want the mix-up of the pandemic incentives to say, well, you got some money already. That was for those hard people that came to work, where some of us was at home, hybrid, teleworking, or just at home waiting to come back in. And those people came into these disastrous environment and got paid for that, but we still need to look at giving everyone an increase because everybody played a part in this role during this horrific. Some of us lost family members, some of us are still grieving, and some of us are still coming to work with all that grief on our backs. So we really want you to look at it. Number three. Now this is the highlight. We had a meeting with Commissioner Jeffrey Norman and the staff. We met some people on his the team. I must say, for the first time in the history with PACE and the Department of HR and that team, we had a wonderful, productive meeting. I have to give accolades where it's due. I have beat up Mr. Norman, I beat up everybody else in the past, but when it's time to give accolades, he was there. And we discussed our MOU. So it's coming forward. We're right now in the drafting stages, and I don't like to give anybody off the kill, so I just told him a few minutes ago, I didn't mention this in the meeting we had yesterday, but I'm going to mention it. 2 items so he can make note that we didn't include, that we're thinking about every 4 years that we're requesting to sign this MOU with Council President and the Mayor. That's what we're requesting. That yearly increases for those 4 years be a minimum of 3 to 4%, and is kind of, I don't want to say the word mandatory, but it's part of our package of that signing of the MOU. That does not stop yearly requests for increases, but we know that we will be getting, once we sign that MOU, employees will be getting potentially 3 to 4% increase. Also, insurance increases, we want to look at putting on hold until we have that 4-year commitment of that MOU. What that looks like financially with Mr. the CFO, don't know yet. This is our wish list, but PACE will have some more data when we come to the briefing before full council on what that will look like. But we want that included in the MOU. Also, we're requesting that in future, when the city projects are making changes to systems that affects employees' pay raises or salary checks, payroll checks, or have anything to do with how they're going to be affected, we're requesting that the project lead team invite PACE to the table before implementation. The reason is such, we talked about this new Oracle intervention with payroll, getting away with Chronos, and sometimes my third eye, as I call it, like to see, and other people have other opinions that you may not, the project leads may not see. You can't see everything because you're not in the field and you're not in the desks with the people doing the work. So we're asking, and we're going to put that as part of our MOU, we're asking that before implementation of any new systems that derives for even cost savings, we get that, changes, we get that for future, because of electronically, and we're going through this new stage of life in the world. Bring the union to the table, because we might have more information that can save you time and money before you implement it and realize we didn't think about it, we got to stop it, and so it's over. And we have done this. We lost a lot of money. Departments have lost a lot of money in the past. And I also like to take this time, see, it was going to be briefly short, that you can tune in weekly doing a shout out, as they call it, to Pace's Radio Connections with Pace podcast, 1 to 2 every week. We give city news of what's already out there, allegedly, and facts. And we share anything that you would like, and we're going to be inviting one of you or anyone to come on our podcast to talk to the employees. They chat in. So far, we almost have 150 subscribers, and we have, I think, Emily, about the last one, we had like 183, about 183 people viewing. And if you don't make it live, you can come back and pull up YouTube and look, click in Radio Connections with Pace. I'm sorry, I got a little scratchy voice. Pick up Radio Connections with Pace, and you can see all of our podcasts. And employees are really loving it. We're getting a lot of accolades about it because in the field they don't know what's going on, and especially during pandemic, this was our way to reach them. And so we're just inviting you. You have a pen. We didn't bring you the pens for Radio Connection with Pace, but you got the pens that monitor, that image our shirts. So when you see us walking, Mr. Dozier, you know not to miss a face, but you see the shirt. That's all I have. And I want to say, we're not here. Let me make this clear, because I see some people from the E911 Center. It was very toxic and volatile in the past. And I want to make sure that they understand that we're not here to attack anyone personal. We want to make sure that the employees' engagement is what we want. Consistency, we're following the rules, because there is a problem determining if there are APD rules that they follow or do they follow civil service rules. By the E91 being civilians, they're not sworn. So we have to make that determination first, and then that's the request of separating them from APD, and they still partner like they do with anybody else, but they're led by a specific commissioner. And that's what we want to say. So we apologize professionally and in person to anyone in that center that we may have hurt feelings or felt taunted, but that was not our intent. But I will still tell you, if you're not doing the right thing, I'm going to come to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pagnotta. All right, the next person I have on the list is Shara Kennedy.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Councilman Dozier. Greetings to all. I am here. My name is Shara Kennedy. Our company resides in the District 4, Zone 4, called Just Schooling. I'm also here on behalf of Safety Chair for the board. I sit on the board for the West End Merchants. I'm also here as a member of the Friends of West End. Why I'm here today is to bring to attention to all legislators. We plan to be on the agenda for upcoming on Monday as well. We are facing severe environmental stressors in Southwest Atlanta. It could be considerably compared to Flint, Michigan at this junction. We are currently been under information being sent to Council Dozier. We're not pointing any fingers. We're not trying to hold anyone blame. However, we do need accountability and third-party review at this junction. We have been working countlessly with previously Council Cleta Winslow regarding getting things done in our community. As you know, we have an EPA investigation with English Avenue with lead being found in the pipes. We also know about Martyr and Southwest Atlanta continuing to ask for a train system in which we're not being granted. We continue to be trying to be pushed. A bus line system in Gwinnett County, for example, is denying that. However, they are still, Martyr is trying to give them a train system. In addition, we also have commissioners under investigation. So we have numerous things that are plaguing our community in District 4. Currently, right now, we are been dealing with the West End Park Pride. We've submitted numerous times within the past 4 years requesting for Park Pride, a nonprofit city organization that is committed to community needs to help with parks revitalization. We recently just got granted a grant from them for $175K to revitalize the park in the historical West End, and that was for an amphitheater. We submitted a total proposal to them for that revitalization of that park that has been neglected, that has severe ADA problems, cracked sidewalks, flooding, baseball diamonds that face the incorrect way. Technically, it should face east and west. Currently, it's north and west. So it's an endangerment to any child playing baseball. It's also overconsumed with water damage issues. We've been continually to make these cries and demands to our city legislation. We've been doing the hoops. We've been jumping through the convoluted system. And unfortunately, our cries like Flint, Michigan have gone unheard. And we've had countless issues with safety. We've had Howell Park closed down due to a homeless man biting someone's ear off.
Ms. Kennedy, your time is up.
Thank you.
I appreciate it, and I trust you'll stay in touch with your council member, and he's heard you, so thank you.
Absolutely. We just wanted to go on record today.
Received. All right, I'm going to go back to the top of the list to see if Nedra Deadweiler is here. All right, Abdul Hakim Mohammed. Ann Hill Bond, or Muna Mohammed, please come to the podium.
All right. Hello. Thank you guys for giving me the opportunity. I spoke earlier, of course, about the MARTA project on Campbellton Road. I am here to discuss that again. And to speak of the finances, there was a project, it was expected, I believe it was $315 million to be given to Campbellton Road, and they have decided to switch it over to a bus rail system, which I believe is very unfair because that is only one of 6 that has only been switched. The rest of the Beltline are still LRT. It's a half-penny tax that's given to MARTA, but based off of some things that I've heard that they've actually gotten the amount that they were expected to get, and this half-penny tax is supposed to be going to 2057, if I'm not mistaken. Could you guys ask MARTA what the new expected is of that half-penny tax that they're getting? Also to see how much it actually is going to cost to implement LRT in all of these projects, because the cost of everything has gone up, and that estimate that they did give a few years ago should be very incorrect right now. So does that mean that they will be asking you guys for more money? Will this mean that the certain areas that aren't getting this is because they don't feel like it's not enough money? Can we make sure that we look into this very well, that these areas are not going to be neglected, and to make sure that they are going to continue giving Campbellton Road the LRT, because that was the first on their project. We are focusing on equity for the community because we don't have that many resources within. It is the second most used bus route, meaning that these are working people that are using this public transportation. So we want to make sure that they will get the best opportunity, as well as the city funding it, making sure that the city's funds are used accurately, and not forgetting that Campbellton Road is a part of the city of Atlanta. I really don't have much to say about it, just to make sure that this project continues to move forward.
Thank you, Ms. Mohan, for your advocacy. Fortunately, a couple of us sit on the Transportation Committee and can help focus on this as well.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up is Tracy Thornhill. Mr. Thornhill.
Good evening. Members of the committee, my name is Tracy Thornhill. I'm with ASHME. My remarks will be most brief today. I'll have greater remarks during the budget presentation next week. I come today simply to say the most important resource with the city of Atlanta is human resource. For far too long, we have not invested in our workforce, especially the lower wage workers. Now we intend to speak with the mayor, and we'll be looking for leadership in the city council too. But put simply, I'm here to ask you that you plan the budget to give city employees a meaningful increase this year. Not just that regular 1-2% that you decide to give us every 3 years or 4 years or whenever you ain't getting it to somebody else. We're talking about those workers that came out on the front line through the pandemic, and a lot of us ended up with COVID and staying out 3 or 4 weeks, down 70% of our work capacity for a whole month. But we still came to work. And like somebody spoke earlier, we lost family members. We lost friends. But it did not stop us from coming to work every day through this whole pandemic. So we're not talking about hazard pay or COVID pay. We're not talking about that. We're talking about something that people can look forward to every week on their paycheck, not because they're at work every day or 80% of the time. We're talking about something that's hooked up to their hourly pay. And I'll be speaking a little bit more about that on when we talk in the budget. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Thornhill. Ms. Kempson-Wright, I believe that's all that I see on the screen. Is that everybody who signed up?
That's correct.
Okay. Because of the mess up, why don't you go ahead and come up and just give us your name? Okay. If you'll just go up there and tell us your name, and you'll have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Brian Sumlin. I'm a Southwest Atlanta resident of Capitol View neighborhood. I'm here as a resident, and thank you for allowing me to speak. So let's first talk about the financing of the people's money as we proceed with the vote of the T-SPLOS 2.0 plan. Let's remember that the checks and balances must and will be mandatory because you are stewarding with the people's money, and under no circumstances are you to deviate our tasks off the list, off the people's projects, with the people's money. And we need to leave the list alone, period, once it's been finalized. In regards to the MARTA program, we see the discrepancies in real time about deviating our tasks off the list and the locally preferred alternatives in Atlanta's transportation corridors because we see the domino effect, corridor by corridor. In another case, the entities are not doing what they want, they're doing what they want to do, and they're not delivering the people's public transportation projects. The community, we made the list, and the council, you represent us, and your decision should be in sync with the community. Furthermore, we are working on a road of recovery of repairing the city's image of previous financial mismanagement, and the community should be your guide to consult with in ensuring we stay on task and we follow the list of the people's projects and initiatives. A lot is at stake, and we urge the council to be proactive, engaged, informed, and educated, and hold our transportation entities accountable with the stewarding of the people's money. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, I believe that should complete our public comment. With that, let's go ahead and move on to our next section, which is communications. Item number 1 is 22-C. Presentations. Wow, kind of jumped the gun there. So first presentation will be the COVID-19 funds report for April. Mr. Deloach, if you'll approach the podium and walk us through your presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jerry Deloach. I'm the Chief Risk Officer for the City of Atlanta. And this afternoon, I want to do the presentation for the COVID-19 CFO financial reporting for funds received to respond to COVID-19. Before I begin, I'd like to make an observation. This is our first meeting that we've had in person. Not only is this our first meeting in person, but it's almost been 3 years since we started doing this. So this is also the actual first time that we will do this presentation in person. So we've come a long way. All right. According to statutes passed by the Atlanta City Council and became law with the signature of the mayor, we are required to report to the council our activities regarding COVID-19 and funds received by the city. And that's what we'll do this afternoon. Okay. On your screen, you'll see all of the funds that have been received by the city. And the only change that has occurred is the $21 million that we recently received from U.S. Treasury to provide emergency rental assistance to residents of the City of Atlanta. On slide 4, that represents our first program, which is the CARES Act, CRF, obligation to spend breakdown. If you'll recall, CARES funds, they had to be obligated by December 31st of 2021. We have obligated all of our funds. We have until September 30th of 2022 to provide expenses related to those funds. As you can see from the presentation, we have about $990,000 left. That does not mean that those funds are available. It just means that we're waiting on receipts to come in to be charged against those funds, but they have already been obligated. Our next slide, that's our ERA slide. It represents the funds that we have received to respond specifically to emergency rental assistance. United Way is our partner in that process, and we received approximately $27 million. You'll see a balance available. It just means that United Way has to provide us receipts to reflect that. Okay. Slide number 6, it shows all of our programs that are currently being funded by ARPA. It shows the obligations against those expenses. And in the far right-hand column, you will see there's about $5 million. That $5 million has been obligated. We're just waiting for expenses to come in to be charged against those. And it also lists the various programs that we have funded with Tranche 1. Just so that you know, for Tranche 2, Treasury notified all of the governmental entities that the portal will open on or about May 1st. The expectation of the city is to apply at that time, and normally within 3 to 5 business days, they will have provided us with the funds to that. Our expectation is to receive those funds in time to book the lost revenue, as well as to go ahead and start our programs that will be funded by Tranche 2. Slide number 7. The council requested that we provide a breakdown of all the funds that have been received throughout the city. This represents the slide from the Department of Aviation for expenses. Excuse me. This represents the slide from the Department of Aviation for funds received from the Federal Aviation Administration. And as you can see, there is an available balance of 61. I can't see that far, but you can see what the available balance is that's available that the Department of Aviation has to spend against that. The next slide is a slide from Emergency Solutions Grant. This grant is being managed by the Department of Grants, and it shows the available balance, and it also shows the date that all those funds have to be spent, and that's called the performance period.
Before you move off that, is the math right on this slide? Is it especially the top 3 lines total, the bottom line? Because it doesn't.
I took a look at that. I will go back and double check, but it does not look right. I just put it that way. We'll double check on that. Okay?
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. The next slide is the Community Development Block Grant. It also shows the breakdown, what's available, and the performance period, which is July of 2022. The next slide is Hopwell, which is also a grant managed by the Department of Grants. It shows the performance period, the amount that was made available to the city, the amount that has been sent, and the current amount that's available for resources. Next grant is the Atlanta Police Department grant. It shows the available amount as well as the original amount, and they are currently spending down on that, and it shows approximately $200,000 that's left from that grant. Slide number 12. We were required to report on nonprofit and philanthropic organizations. Most of those funds were spent in the first 6 months or year of the COVID-19. There has not been any change to this particular slide. Slide number 13 provides a summary of all the donations that have been received by the City of Atlanta. Right now, they're showing approximately $1.2 million. That is the total amount that is received throughout the course of COVID-19. The next slide is a breakdown of the individuals or organizations who made the donations, the amount. This is required for ethics purposes, and this is information used by the ethics office. Same thing, same thing, same thing. Okay. This slide here in particular provides a summary of all of the funds that have been received by the City of Atlanta. On the left-hand side of the screen, you will see the expenditures that have been allocated and the programs that have been utilized for those funds. On the right hand of the screen, we have we have broken down the source to make sure that expenses actually balance out to the funds that have been received. This allows us to avoid having any deficit for any particular program, and all the funds equals to the expenses that have been utilized by the city. The interesting thing about this particular slide is that our expenses, as we have progressed into the program 3 years now, they have continually to decline. In the last month, we've only utilized about $1.7 million, And the bulk of that was $1.5 million that was used to fund a program with the Atlanta Development Authority. Okay. And the next slide, once again, is provide a summary of that, breakdown into all of the sources of funding and the various programs that have been utilized. Particular importance for this slide is that this slide provides some insight into how much money we paid to hazardous pay, as well as all of the other programs we've had during the course of the pandemic. And I will take any questions if there are any.
All right, are there questions from my colleagues? I do have one. If you go back to slide 3, you mentioned the $21 million that we received in March. You can remind me how that would then show up, or where it would show up in the subsequent pages? Was it already rolled up in the totals, or is that, I guess my question is, it sounds like it's an incremental $21 million that we got.
It's already rolled up into the totals. It will show on the approved side, down about a fourth of the page.
Yep, I see that.
$21 million. And it will show on the slide 17 and 18 that it just showed. It should show up in there as well.
Okay, so the dollar amount, these dollar amounts would have increased as well.
Council member, in page 5 as well, which tracks ERA obligations and spend down, that shows the initial $27 million. So the supplemental 21 will come in that slide as well.
Okay, all right.
It will be added to that slide as well. Yes.
Thank you. Other questions from my colleagues for Mr. DeLoach? All right, seeing none, thank you very much for your presentation. All right, no other presentations, right? So we can move into communications, is that correct? Well, oh, wait. Office of Labor and Employee Relations. Sorry, I should not be looking at my screen. So, Commissioner Norman, are you? There he is.
Good afternoon. Jeffrey Norman, Commissioner of Human Resources. So wanted to introduce our Director of Employee and Labor Relations, Tamika Sperling Brooks, and she'll be providing a presentation today on behalf of HR relative to Office of Labor and Employee Relations. Tamika?
Thank you.
And colleagues, you have a printed copy of the presentation in front of you as well.
Good afternoon, Finance Executive Committee. Special greetings to the Chairperson, Honorable Council Member Juan. My name is Tamika Sperling Brooks. I'm the Director of the Office of Labor and Employee Relations. I'm here to talk to you today a little bit about the Office of Labor and Employee Relations and what we do on behalf of the employees of the City of Atlanta. Okay, I was going to ask if I controlled the clicker with this. Okay, perfect. And just because I can't see all the way to the screen there, I'm going to also maintain my presentation here with me. Okay, so here on the screen you see my mission statement for the Office of Labor and Employee Relations. We potentially have a staff of 6. And I say potentially 6 because we are currently a staff of 4. And we are here to help build a healthy organizational climate where employees are valued stakeholders with the power to affect outcomes. At the core of our philosophy is resolution at the lowest level. We believe 2 of the tools needed to foster this type of climate are relationship building and effective communication. So each day we work towards our vision, which you see there, our strategic vision, and we work diligently to provide advice, counsel, training to city employees in order to provide a consistent citywide approach to the application of the city code, rules, policies, and HR best practices, including a range of labor and employment-related challenges. Next, you'll see our org chart. So when fully staffed, we will be able to realize our mission and vision statements more seamlessly. Earlier, I mentioned potentially fully staffed. We would be a staff of 6. We are currently a staff of 4. You see our 2 vacancies there in the org chart. Okay. So moving into the policies and city codes frequently applicable to employee concerns, complaints, and administrative processes that the Office of Labor and Employee Relations facilitates on behalf of the employees of the City of Atlanta. You'll see those are provided at the bottom of the page or the bottom of the screen there. Just a smattering for you to kind of see what we do on a daily basis and how we assist employees in the City of Atlanta. The paragraph in the center of the page describes in further detail how our office assists employees with some of these listed issues and processes. Some policies are located on both the city code and in the policy section on the city's website. The forthcoming slides will have references to both of those there. I won't read the full paragraph to you. Okay, so first up, we have the Equal Employment Opportunity Policy. You'll see at the top of the screen or page there is a reference to where you can find that policy. The EEO policy is the overarching non-discrimination policy that applies to every aspect of city employment, policy, and practice. The anti-fraternization policy prohibits current or previous romantic or sexual relationships between a supervisor and a subordinate in the workplace. The next 2 policies encompass training requirements within them for City of Atlanta employees. The sexual harassment policy prohibits discriminatory practices and requires prompt remedial action should it be determined that sexual harassment has occurred. It further prohibits retaliation in these claims as well. Only found in the policy handbook is the city's anti-bullying and workplace violence policy. This comprehensive policy works to eliminate and minimize workplace threats, violence, and bullying, and includes an employee training requirement as well. So now let's move to the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances. You'll also see the reference there in the top right, just in case you're looking for the reference. Located in the Muni Code. So, of course, the most noteworthy being our Civil Service Code, located in Article 4, differentiating our classified service employees. Section 114-84 defines classified service. You'll see there classified service is defined as a non-probationary employee who's completed probationary service. They are grade 18 and below, and they have the right to file an appeal of an adverse action, that being a suspension, demotion, or dismissal to the Civil Service Board. Section 114-79 defines what the Civil Service Board does and how it is constructed. The code defines the Civil Service Board as the official protector of the civil service system. Article 6 covers other labor relations topics, including the codified grievance process, disciplinary actions, including progressive discipline, substance abuse policy, and the sexual harassment policy as well. Division 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, all under Article 6, Labor Relations. So we've also provided some preliminary FY22 data for you. This data covers the time frame of July 2021 through March 31st, 2022 for the Office of Labor and Employee Relations. The first data point is EEOC's Equal Employment Opportunity Commission complaints or charges. There are a total of 11 there, internal complaints, 24 ILs or City of Atlanta Ethics Office Integrity Line complaints, CSB appeals, 62, I'm sorry, I didn't mention 14 ILs, CSB appeals 62, and there have not been any final level grievances for Commissioner Norman to resolve. That leaves a total of 111 different types of complaints and processes that this office has gone through full complaint processes for so far in FY 2022, and the year is not complete yet. Digging a little deeper into the data, the EEOC chart by department indicates a standout department. EEOC charges by category indicate that disability and gender discrimination are the two standout types of concerns for City of Atlanta employees. Just as a point of clarification, other indicates examples such as unequal pay, race, and retaliation. As it pertains to internal complaints, by department, 3 departments have received 3 or more complaints since July of 2021. For internal complaints, anti-bullying and workplace violence, along with sexual harassment and other were the top categories. Other consists of terms and conditions of employment, like working out of classification, and complaints of unprofessional or misconduct, etc. Okay? By department, only one department has received more than 3 integrity line complaints since July of 2021. Integrity line complaints by category show a focus on harassment and hostile work environment and other as the categories. Other includes the same types of examples as above that I mentioned earlier, working out of classification, complaints of unprofessional or misconduct, and absenteeism, etc. Finally, we have Civil Service Board appeals by month. You can see our heavier months this year by the graph. From the second CSB chart, you can see we have had more appeals settled or withdrawn than heard. There have been 35 settled CSBs and 16 heard. CSB hearings are currently held on Thursdays of each week, and the schedules are posted on the city's website. Right now, the schedules are up through June of 2022. Okay? All right. So now we'll move to processes. And what you see up now is an intake process for complaints. The next 3 slides are flow charts of each of our internal processes pertaining to complaints. They're self-explanatory with comment boxes outlining where appropriate forms can be found as well. The complaint form is located on the City of Atlanta employee intranet. And moving to our FY23 innovations, technological upgrades, we hope will provide a few efficiencies for employees and for us in terms of reporting and tracking cases and other things. I'll go into a little bit more detail a little bit later when we get to the FY23 innovations. But hopefully we can provide some of those. Any questions on the intake process? No? Okay. Moving to the investigative process at a glance. Again, pretty self-explanatory. Complainants are offered the opportunity for an intake either face-to-face or virtually. Investigators are sure to advise both complainants and respondents of City of Atlanta requirements of confidentiality and the city's zero tolerance of retaliation. Average investigations, of course, run 30 to 45 working days typically, and complex investigations around 90 working days typically. Okay. This flowchart here speaks to how we work in tandem with our ethics office. I spoke earlier in regards to the metrics around our integrity line complaints and how we process those in our office. OLER acts as a facilitator of the IL complaint, integrity line complaint. In some instances, our department will farm out the complaint to an outside investigator, depending on the circumstances, and we will report directly back to the ethics office. Okay? All right. Okay, so FY 2023 continuous improvement plans for the Office of Labor and Employee Relations. So I'm new to the city. I started in November of 2021. So far, looking backwards, but not too far back. It's just November. So far, we reduced the number of backlog CSB hearings, and currently we have cleared the backlog to about 3 unscheduled appeals. We have, as I mentioned already, built out the CSB calendar for June. We have done about 3, or perhaps it was 4, 4 unwelcome conduct trainings that we did in tandem with the law department and other colleagues in DHR and APD. And Clarity Value is a online case management system that we are working to build online right now. So it's our online case management system. We're planning to open up a pilot to begin in May of 2022. There are 2 departments that we've worked with who have committed to being pilots for us, and we hope to bring that online case management system. We hope to bring that case management system online in July of 2022 for the 2023 fiscal year. We hope it'll bring efficiency to the department. We hope it'll bring ease of filing complaints for employees as well. Clarity Value will also house resources online to ensure employees will have multiple locations to access forms for grievances as well as the complaint process. We also hope to become fully staffed by early FY 2023. And of course, this will assist us in better serving the employees of the City of Atlanta. Our goal is to continue to work with the Department of Human Resources, department managers, and our unions to identify ongoing areas of flexibility on behalf of employees as well. We want to continue to leverage technology to be efficient and more accurate. In the development stage now of a new grievance management training for supervisors and managers, so that's coming online, and we're hoping to have that completed and uploaded into ATL Cloud by June 30th of 2022. And we are planning additional union meetings to facilitate ongoing communication and low-level resolution of workplace concerns for City of Atlanta employees. And those are our FY 2023 continuous improvement goals. Are there any questions?
All right. I've got a lineup here of folks who want to ask questions, so thank you for your presentation. First up is Councilmember Dozier.
Thank you for your presentation. I have a few questions. I'll try to get them out quickly because I know my colleagues also have some questions as well. The first one is, I appreciate you sharing the number of complaints for each department. Are you able to share that on a per, I don't want to say capita basis, but I know some departments are bigger than others, for instance. I know, like the integrity line, you had Parks and Recreation at the top for investigations at Watershed. Investigations in the EEOC charges, Watershed was at the top. And I know our departments are very dramatically in terms of number of personnel. I think that would be helpful to maybe identify where there's more problem areas than others. So just if you can present that back or share that back with the committee, I think that would be helpful.
I have the data broken down. I can provide it to you. Would you like it here? Would you like it offline?
Email will be fine.
Okay, perfect.
Could you please make sure to email it to everybody on finance?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And then my next question on the appeals, I noticed when you look at it by month, it was 888. Is 8 the number that is capped at for those hearings, or?
Yes, that's per code.
Okay.
2 per day. Mm-hmm.
And so let's say worst case scenario, pandemonium and cats and dogs are living together, and there's all this craziness. And let's say we have more. 8 times 12 is, I can't do math today, but thank you. He said a number, I'm going to say it's right because it's better than what my brain's coming up with. But will that roll over to the next year until you kind of get through the backlog? How would that work in that scenario?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Just generally speaking, if we're capped at 8, but there's more than whatever 8 times 12 is in the year. Thank you, 96. How would that be managed? If we ran into a backlog again, how would we manage the backlog? Does that get is there prioritization based on the type of complaint? I'm just kind of curious about how y'all...
For CSB. Right. Okay, so if we were to have...
appeals specifically, yeah.
I'm sorry.
For the appeals, since the appeals are capped at 8, so yeah, that process.
So we roll them. It's based off of their representative and when they're submitting their appeals and when they can schedule them. And so their representative and how flexible they are with scheduling and when they can come in and then when the hearing officers are available.
Okay, so there's no based on the type of complaint, there's no prioritization based to kind of get through.
On the type of appeal, you mean versus like a termination versus, suspension or something like that? No.
Right, that's...
Yeah, I just wanted to respond relative to the number of hearings. And so I think when we're talking about a current cap, when we're using that 8 number, that's because we currently have scheduled on Thursdays on a weekly basis. So we're not capped on the actual daily ability. So we do have the ability to incorporate additional days. And so, for example, if we're able to staff appropriately to have those appellate hearings, then we can run those, multiple days during a week. So you can get more than that 8 during a weekly, opportunity. It's just that currently we're scheduled based on the current staffing for the Civil Service Board, where we're running those on Thursdays, consistent with the board members' preferred availability. And so that's why we're capped, for those 2 per day. So 4 of those days out of the month, you're hitting that 8. But it does not mean, for example, we could not in the future, if we have appropriate staffing at the Civil Service Board level, be able to leverage additional days during the month to have more of those cycling through on a monthly basis.
Gotcha. So it's scaled appropriately to the demand for that.
That's correct.
Gotcha.
That's correct.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you.
And then my next question was, I did have a question about the integrity line, and I think it was answered that it is accessible to the public. So with that being said, I'm curious if some of the complaints that are received are a function of how public-facing that department is. So Parks and Recreation, for instance, comes to mind. I wonder if that, in addition to the other data asset I had, if you could share maybe a breakdown of whether it's an internal complaint versus a public complaint sent to that hotline or that tip line. I think that would probably help provide.
I have the integrity line data as well broken down, so I can email that to you. Now, I don't know if it will say who it came from. Some of them are anonymous, so.
When it's anonymized, is there any delineation on whether or not that came from a city employee versus the general public, or is it just open?
That I don't know. That you may have to check with the ethics office on, because they're the originator of that complaint.
Okay. And then Mr. Norman.
Yes. So for the integrity line complaints, so it really depends on the information that the caller provides. And so that service is provided through a third-party vendor. And so they're trained to ask those specific questions. Most of the times, individuals will indicate whether or not they are internal or external to the city. So that is normally information that can be gleaned. And so, we also have the ability through the integrity line system to actually, ask for additional information, even if they've identified themselves or have not identified themselves. Each caller is provided with a reference number, so to the extent that they do call back in, the city can ask additional questions. If that individual calls back, for example, for a check-in or a checkup, they would be able to answer those additional questions. But normally that type of data is accessible through the calls. Yes.
And then my last question, I know police was included as a department in the list of departments. How or does the Atlanta Civil Review Board fit into this, or Citizens Review Board, I should say, fit into this equation? Does it, or is that just a completely separate process?
So the Citizens Review Board is a separate entity, and so normally, complaints and investigations are conducted by the Citizen Review Board body. They do ultimately make recommendations to the police department, and then the police department will obviously make a determination as to whether they have a consensus. They will consider the findings of that board, but that is not connected directly to Civil Service Board.
Thank you so much.
Okay, sure.
Councilmember Bakhtiari.
Yes, thank you. One question I did want to ask was, how are we doing on the backlog for CSB?
We only have 3 left to schedule on the backlog.
Okay.
We are fully scheduled through June. That June calendar is up and it's on the website. So those last 3 could be scheduled on the July calendar, which is not up yet.
Great. And then, Commissioner Norman, if the legislation that we worked on together were to pass, how long until that would kick into effect?
So that would obviously go into effect upon adoption of the legislation. So we would then move to, make sure that we have that in place. And so we would then move forward and operate under the terms of the new legislation.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
My other question was, and I noticed the breakdown of everything you all had listed. Thank you. There seem to be, based on the conversations we've had around EU911, I would imagine that those numbers would have been reported under APD. And if so, those numbers seem low based on the conversations we've been having over these last few months.
So I know I did have a conversation, with PACE. That was part of what we talked a little bit about yesterday. What was brought to my attention, because as the grievance process, and I know that we have a separate training that we're developing relative to the grievance piece, my understanding is that there are potentially grievances out there at the department level that have never formally made it to HR. So obviously we're only reporting on those that have come into our office, because normally they're resolved at the department. If they're unable to be resolved, they would be subsequently formally transmitted to the Department of Human Resources. So we'll work with the union. They do say that there are some that they're aware have not made their way to the HR organization, so we wouldn't have any idea as to what that number is. We do have ideas relative to discussions we've had along with the police department and the union of some issues out there, but those were not dealing with specific identified grievances that have been submitted. We talked more at a global level about some of the challenges within the organization along with the chief.
Thank you. Could you elaborate on what you mean when you say it has not formally come to HR?
So the process is, the grievance process, the way it's designed here at the city, it is normally facilitated as a first instance for resolution at the department level, which means that it normally will start off and go through the hierarchy all the way up to the commissioner within of that respective department. And then if the employee is not satisfied with the resolution of that grievance at the department level, then it would then be officially transmitted for review to the Human Resources organization.
Understood. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Shook.
Yeah, Mr. Norman, if I could, I'd like to follow up on Ms. Bakhtiari's line. So, does the clock start running for a grievance review when an individual contacts or gets in the system and says, hey, I've been victimized in the following way? Or can it also start if you're handed a list provided by a union rep with, a detailed list of people?
So the clock starts ticking at the department level, and so there are time requirements at the department level. There are opportunities for extensions to be granted as part of that progression, but the time is that clock does not start ticking because we do not have any. It's not like we have two open cases at the same time. And so once it travels that full cycle through the department, if it is not resolved, then it would then transmit over to if it's submitted to the HR organization, then the clock would start because there are time parameters for the Department of Human Resources.
So there's a statute of limitations in effect on when a complaint can be lodged?
There are time requirements within which that do have to be followed. Obviously, for most situations where there tend to be systemic issues or issues that have not been appropriately resolved, if those issues are brought to our attention, we will still nonetheless look at those larger systemic issues. But to that point, if somebody comes and says, hey, these are issues that have not been resolved, we obviously would take a look at them to make a determination whether or not there was some reason that these things were not resolved at the department level. So we would have to look at that to make sure that folks have really gotten their full due process.
Okay, and then, because there's been a lot of dialogue and conversations around E911 conditions, right? So,
yes.
So we're sensitive to that. And as part of that, were you or are you conducting any kind of investigation or review specifically into that, or are you just going on a case-by-case basis?
No, we are evaluating some of those larger issues. We have had the opportunity to sit down with the union as well as with the police chief to have conversations relative to some of those issues. we do plan to continue to have that larger discussion because we do understand that there are concerns within that specific division. And so we will continue to work with the police department for resolution of those items.
Any particular guesstimated time frame as to when the issues that have been brought to your attention will have received the analysis you're giving?
Yeah, I would anticipate that, probably in the, next 8 weeks or so, we would have had an opportunity to work through, all of those issues. We'd also would have an opportunity to look at any of these outstanding grievances that may be circulating out there that have not come to our, formal attention. But there are some, clear discussions relative to, infrastructure efficiency and ensuring that folks are getting their due process. Part of it will also have a component that is focused on training that will be for managers, supervisors, employees as well, just to make sure that everybody is informed on some of the things we talked about today, but also making sure that if there really are substantive issues that need to be addressed for specific individuals, that we can address those as well. But I would anticipate we should have that completed within the next 8 weeks, if not earlier.
Lastly, it would help me to better understand that by department numbers and the standard resolution timeframes, if I could compare that, if it can be done, to other comparable city governments. Is there an industry standard? Because I don't know if 3 is a big number, a number we just have to live with, or a low number. Because that's reasonable. We can look at some benchmark data so you have context for those numbers and metrics that are being provided. Okay, yeah, and then same for resolution time frame. I don't know where 45 days fits into what other people are doing.
Okay.
But thank you.
Yeah, we're happy to provide that.
All right, Councilmember Bakari.
Hello again. One quick question, because I'm also familiarizing. I say quick question, there's no quick questions. But I'm familiarizing myself with, obviously, the process in which HR works. So when there is a situation that becomes a consistent problem, or there's accusations of bullying, or to some of the points that Councilmember Shook was bringing up, where in the timeline is council made aware? Because I think waiting until certain presentations is oftentimes too late to be brought into the conversation. So I want to understand when we are notified and brought in to help mitigate or be made aware of what may be consistent or systemic issues.
I mean, we obviously have a reporting purview to this particular committee. Obviously, we do constantly, discuss these things as an operational side. And so on the executive side, we will be having those discussions throughout the respective organization about those correct alignments. But we're happy to make sure that we do provide some, briefing or overviews, on a consistent basis to this committee, to the extent that there is an interest in sharing those types of things. We do not normally, absent, the policy implications, necessarily get into having those types of routine briefings at the council level because they are purely operational issues. But we are more than happy to kind of, make sure that we do keep the committee advised on a pretty frequent basis of some things that are identified as systemic that potentially may have an impact on the policy side. So to the extent that there's any type of legislation or things like that involved, that you have a heads up on that. Thank you, Commissioner.
Sure. I have any of my other colleagues have questions? I do have one. You made a comment when you were talking about the OLER policies about anti-bullying and workforce violence being the only one that's in the handbook and not in the code. Is there a reason for that, or is there a standard by which it should be in the code versus when it's not? It just struck me when you said that. So, is that just taking action from us, or?
No. So obviously, there's no prohibition for policies to actually be put in through legislation. But it is not it's not unusual that for those things where we necessarily recognize that there are some things consistent with our overall policies, that we may drill down with an administrative policy just to make sure we're providing appropriate guidance to the workforce. I know this predated me, but I know there was a specific recognition of some issues, that lended themselves to instituting that administrative policy. And so that, I don't believe there was any associated codification to that. Obviously, those precepts are still caught and kind of still spark from some of our codified provisions. So this is really just amplifying some of those things that are already codified.
Okay.
But that's why it presents itself as an administrative policy.
All right, so what I'm hearing from you, though, is if we as council feel like it's worth elevating into the code, we certainly have that prerogative.
Yes.
All right, that was the only question I had. Any other questions from my colleagues on this? Okay, thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you, guys.
And colleagues, if you have anything specific you want to follow up with them, just please reach out to them directly. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff.
All right. Okay, colleagues, we're going to go ahead and continue on with our agenda that next completes our presentations. Moves on to communications. The first one is 22-C-5061. Communication from Danielle Hampton, Chair, Audit Committee, submitting the Performance Audit Report, Direct Payments. There is a presentation that you should have a copy of in your materials in front of you. Ms. Noble, go ahead.
Good afternoon. I'm Amanda Noble, City Auditor. I'm here with the audit team to present our performance audit of direct pays. Brandy Bell is going to walk through our presentation. Brandy?
Good afternoon. To the committee members. I am Brandy Bell, Senior Performance Auditor for the City Auditor's Office. I will be presenting work performed and the results of the Department of Finance Direct Payments Audit. The team for this audit included Rebecca Robinson, Senior Performance Auditor, and myself. The Department of Finance Office of the Controller Accounts Payable Division is responsible for ensuring vendor invoices are paid, which include invoices submitted for payment through the city's direct payment process. Typically, departments are required to obtain a purchase order from the city's Department of Procurement prior to accepting any goods or services on behalf of the city. However, the city has established exceptions to using purchase orders when the procurement is below a specific amount or for certain types of expenses like direct payments. Direct payments are transactions for which competitive sourcing is not possible, such as purchases for conference registrations, subscriptions, settlements, and court fees. In fiscal year 2021, accounts payable processed nearly $126 million in direct payment expenses, which represents approximately 5% of the city's total expenses for the year. On slide 2, here I will address our audit objective, scope, and methodology. We undertook this audit of the direct payment process because our June 2021 report, Forensic Audit Services, found that control deficiencies in the procurement process contributed to a former city executive's ability to make improper payments. Direct payments have fewer controls than the procure-to-pay process, which enable the executive to obligate the city for improper purchases. This audit addresses the following objective: are controls in place for the Department of Finance to ensure that direct payments are appropriate? Our scope included reviewing direct payments citywide for fiscal year 2021. We interviewed accounts payable staff to document the city's direct payment process, examine policies and procedures to understand how direct payments are processed, and randomly sample paid direct payment expense transactions to assess compliance with the accounts payable procedures and to determine whether duplicate payments were made. Other methods included reviewing city code regarding the procurement process and finance's role in ensuring accounting accuracy, developing flowcharts to illustrate the procure-to-pay processes, interviewing staff from entities with similar direct payment processes to identify best practices, comparing the city's direct payment process to best practices for non-purchase order payment processes, procure-to-pay processes, and procurement cards, and also analyzing dashboard report data to determine its usefulness to departments in reducing the volume of direct payments. This slide, along with the next two slides, provide a high-level overview of our findings. Details of the findings are to follow. We identified the accounts payable policy defines specific classes of goods and services as pre-authorized direct payments. The Department of Finance considers unallowable direct payments as purchases that have not been pre-authorized according to the accounts payable policy. We found over 3/4 of direct payment invoices paid in 2021 classified as unallowable could have been processed through the Department of Procurement as micro purchases because the payment was under $5,000. Additionally, the accounts payable policy lacked guidance on requiring departments to use micro purchases for qualifying purchases. The direct payment process bypasses the pre- and post-purchase controls of the procure-to-pay process, such as written approvals prior to purchase, reconciliation of supporting documentation, and segregation of duties between the requester and the authorizer. The process is inherently risky because departments have usually already received the purchase item, obligating the city to make payments to vendors before finance has an opportunity to review the purchase. Even though direct payments are risky transactions, we found departments did not consistently follow and accounts payable did not consistently enforce existing controls outlined in its procedures, such as submission of all required documentation and obtaining proper authorizations. We also noted accounts payable could enhance certain controls to make the direct payments process less risky. We found the accounts payable policy lacks guidance to ensure that department heads approve all direct payments. Additionally, we found incompatible duties exist that allow certain accounts payable staff to establish vendor profiles while having permissions to create and approve direct payment invoices for the same vendor. We also found duplicate payments were made to vendors due to employees bypassing the system control that prevents a subsequent payment for the same invoice. We found data captured.
Sorry, Mr. Bond had a question.
I just need to be excused.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. Bond. Sorry.
That's okay. We found data captured in the dashboard that departments use to track the status of direct payments are unreliable, partly because finance did not validate the data and because departments are not coding the payments correctly. We also found the dashboard report is inaccurate because it contains non-direct payment transactions, such as wire transfers and purchase order-related invoices. We also found inconsistencies between the dashboard report and the accounts payable policy regarding allowable direct payments. For example, telephone expenses were classified as allowable within the dashboard report, but they were not listed as allowable direct payments in the policy. So here we will discuss the details of our findings. So our first area of findings, most unallowable direct payments could have been processed through procurement. Of the 10,691 direct payment invoices accounts payable processed during fiscal year 2021, The majority of direct payments were $5,000 or less and unallowable, potentially eligible to have been made as micro purchases. Goods and services under $5,000 could be procured as micro purchases through procurement, which allows goods to be obtained sooner than in a traditional procurement because it requires one quote rather than the 3 quotes required for small purchases. The micro purchase process is not as rigorous as procure to pay, but it does offer some pre-purchase controls. The accounts payable policy references the micro purchase code, but does not require departments to use it. Revising the accounts payable policy to require departments use micro purchases for qualifying purchases would significantly reduce the number of direct payments and the associated risk. So, to reduce the volume of direct payments, we recommended to the CFO to revise the accounts payable policy to require city departments to use micro purchasing for goods and services not exceeding $5,000 that can be procured to pay, and to also provide training to city departments on the updated policy. We also recommended the CFO report the dashboard results for each city department during Finance's quarterly presentation to the Finance Executive Committee, highlighting the number of unallowable direct payments under $5,000. The CFO agreed with each recommendation. Departments are bypassing direct payment controls. On slide 7, this is an excerpt of Exhibit 6 on page 13 of the report. It compares the difference in controls between the direct pay, procure to pay, and P-card or procurement card methods. The direct payment process bypasses the pre- and post-purchase controls of the procure to pay process, such as written approvals prior to purchase, reconciliation of supporting documentation, and segregation of duties between the requester and the authorizer. The accounts payable policy provides guidance to departments on submitting required documentation and obtaining proper authorizations for payment of direct pay invoices. We sampled 85 direct payments to determine whether departments were in compliance with the policy. Departments submitted the disbursement form, invoice, and business justification for 70 of 85, almost 83%, direct payments in our sample. However, we found 10 of 85, almost 12%, were missing the business justification, with 4 of the 10 missing the disbursement form completely, and 5 of 85, almost 6%, were missing the invoice. We also found in our sample 5 of 85, almost 6% direct payments were created and approved by the same accounts payable employee. 5 of 85, almost 6% direct payments were missing the requester's signature. And 9 of 85, almost 11% direct payments had the same person as the requester and approver on the disbursement form. Our sample also included 3 direct payments that were over $100,000, which are to be approved by the CFO or the deputy CFO prior to payment. We found one of the payments did not include either signature required by policy. As shown in the exhibit, 2 procure-to-pay controls include written approvals or requisition prior to purchase and segregation of duties between the requester and authorizer. So to promote compliance with the accounts payable policy, we recommend the CFO ensure the accounts payable policy reflects current practices and require finance staff to put direct payments on hold status until city departments meet all direct payment requirements. And we also recommended the CFO require city departments to use the updated accounts payable disbursement form, submit required documentation, and ensure all required signatures are present on the disbursement forms. The CFO agreed with each recommendation. Existing controls could be enhanced. In order for a direct pay invoice to be paid, the accounts payable staff assigns the invoice for departmental approval through the Oracle workflow. In our sample of direct payments, we found that 29 of 85, 34%, were approved in Oracle by employees at a manager level or below. Best practices suggest that the department head approve invoices for payment, attesting to the receipt of goods and services and that they are a true and just charge. The accounts payable policy does not provide guidance on the level of approval required for direct payments in Oracle. Because direct payments are made after goods or services are rendered, obligating the city, the level of authorization should reflect the associated risk. The lack of guidance on approvals could result in improper budgeting and city departments obligating the city for purchases without department heads' knowledge. Accounts payable employees told us that certain employees within the department have the capability to set up vendor profiles while also having permissions to create and approve direct payment invoices in Oracle. They also told us that they create vendor profiles in Oracle when they receive direct payment requests for one-time payments, including refunds and legal settlements. According to best practices, creating new vendor profiles and authorizing purchases or approving payments should be responsibilities that are not within one employee's purview. The lack of segregation of duties in the direct payment process increases the risk of fraud related to making payments to fictitious vendors. So to enhance direct payment controls, we recommend that the CFO update the accounts payable policy to require department heads to approve all direct payments. If finance modifies its procedures to also require qualifying purchases to be made using the micro purchase method as recommended, it will reduce the number of direct payments and lessen the administrative burden on department heads to approve these payments. We also recommended the CFO establish controls to prevent staff who set up one-time vendor profiles in Oracle from creating and approving associated direct payments. The CFO agreed with each recommendation. Accounts payable staff miskeyed invoice numbers resulting in duplicate payments. On slide 11, this is Exhibit 7 on page 17 of the report, which shows an example of an invoice that resulted in a duplicate payment due to a modified invoice number. We sampled 65 of 643 vendors, so 10% roughly, who were paid more than one payment through the direct payment process in fiscal year 2021. After reviewing supporting documentation, we found 16 duplicate payments totaling $112,631 to 6 different vendors. Oracle has a built-in control to warn accounts payable staff of potential duplicate invoices in which the vendor and invoice number are the same. The system control, however, will not prevent staff from creating invoices when the invoice number for the same vendor has been modified. We determined that employees modified invoice numbers when they keyed them into Oracle, such as adding extra characters or changing characters within the invoice number string. So the information entered into Oracle no longer matched the supporting documentation. Bypassing this system control allowed second payments to vendors for the same invoice. Invoice number alterations, whether accidental or intentional, could result in a duplicate payment and/or indicate fraud. Our continuous audit program has established detective controls to flag duplicate invoices based on similar invoice numbers from the same vendor and on the same date. Report intended to track direct payments is inaccurate. On slide 12, This is Exhibit 3 on page 7 of the report, which shows the breakdown of allowable and unallowable direct payments in the dashboard report. In April 2020, the Department of Finance collaborated with a third-party vendor to develop the Accounts Payable Invoice Dashboard. The dashboard is an interactive module in Oracle that city departments can access to review invoice status and processing. A module dedicated to direct payments includes a breakdown of allowable and unallowable direct payment transactions. Finance classifies allowable direct payments as those that have been pre-authorized according to the accounts payable policy. The department considers unallowable direct payments as purchases that have not been pre-authorized. The dashboard was initially created for finance to internally monitor the general status of payments, but finance later rolled it out to city departments and began training employees to use it in September 2020. According to finance staff, the dashboard was developed in part to reduce the number of direct payments. Finance also created a dashboard report entitled Direct Pay Invoices Details in June 2021 to reflect the information on the dashboard. The dashboard report consolidates direct payment transactions citywide. According to the dashboard report, city departments use the direct payment process for goods and services, including personnel and contracted services, supplies, and capital purchases, and other costs such as property taxes and board member compensation. The purpose of the dashboard is to inform city departments of the status of their direct payment requests to encourage them to reduce the overall number. We found that the underlying data, however, are inaccurate because they include unpaid direct payments and non-direct payments, such as wire transfers, which are processed by the Office of Treasury, purchase order-related transactions, employee expense report corrections, credit memos, and canceled transactions. Also, finance staff told us that the data in the dashboard report were not validated by higher levels of accounts payable management, who are considered the business owners of the process. Because the report was not properly validated, the data are not completely reliable for monitoring payment status citywide. We also found that the dashboard report categorized some direct payments as allowable, but were not included as allowable in the accounts payable policy. These direct payments consisted of service-related payments for property taxes, service grants, and general liability insurance for non-employees. Also, as mentioned earlier, telephone expenses were classified as allowable within the dashboard report, but they were not included in the utilities category in the accounts payable policy. On slide 14, this is Exhibit 8 on page 19 of the report that shows a breakdown of allowable and unallowable direct payment expense transactions for fiscal year 2021. City departments submitted 6,920 direct payments that were flagged as unallowable. Some expenses were incorrectly classified as unallowable because departments miscoded the direct payments. We found the Department of Law to be one of the departments with the highest volume of unallowable direct payments. Its staff told us that the majority of its direct payment invoices were for outside legal counsel services, which is an allowable expense according to the accounts payable policy. But because the department is miscoding outside counsel service expenses to the consulting professional services account, they are appearing in the dashboard as unallowable expenses. Moreover, accounts payable management has not validated account coding within the dashboard report against the policy, which could ensure city departments use proper account codes for direct payment purchases. Also, the policy does not stipulate The accounts to which disbursement requests should be coded based on its allowable expense categories. Accounts payable employees are also not reviewing direct payment account coding for appropriateness. Miscoded payment requests could result in discrepancies in public financial reporting and the direct payment dashboard, which cities departments use to monitor their compliance with the policy. So, to ensure that the city's accounting records are accurate and the dashboard can be useful for departments to track direct payments, we recommend that the CFO work with the third-party vendor to improve the accuracy of the dashboard by correcting identified discrepancies and validating report data. We also recommend the CFO update the accounts payable policy to ensure that categories of allowable expenses are comprehensive and consider auditing the dashboard report quarterly for data reliability, and also update the policy to include the account coding for allowable expenses and provide periodic refresher training to city departments on the dashboard and account coding. We also recommend the CFO direct the Office of Budget and Fiscal Policy to work with city departments to improve their consistency in account coding for direct payment requests. The CFO agreed with each recommendation. This concludes our presentation. The full report is available on our website at atlaudit.org. We appreciate the courtesy and cooperation of city staff throughout the audit. Thank you for your time. We'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. And before, thank you for the very thorough presentation. And before I open it up to my colleagues for questions, I did want to give CFO Ball a chance to respond.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's some pretty,
Thank you.
information.
Thank you, Amanda Noble, City Auditors team. We had a meeting about this late last year, and we were in agreement. We were in agreement with most of the recommendations that she made. Many of the implementations were already underway, and most have already been implemented or close to being implemented. It is important to say while direct payments only represent 5% of the overall city expenses, they do represent a nominal amount in payments that are going out the city. So there are concerns, and we are on the same accord to make sure that those concerns are addressed. That's why we're in agreement with all the recommendations. In terms with, for example, the duplicate payments, that is a risk for duplicate payments. They were out there, and we retrieved all that money. So nobody has money that still owes the city. Those have all been rectified, but the risk is there, and the underlying risk is what we're trying to mitigate and work together as a team. So I commend the team for taking a deep dive into this and coming with their recommendations. The policy has already been updated, but Controller Carr and myself know that it's a living, breathing policy that needs to be continuously monitored and updated when we change systems and change processes. So again, I thank the team for their diligence in looking into this and giving us the guidance to be better and more fiscally responsible for the city.
Queue of questions here. Jason Dozier first, and then Liliana Bakhtiari.
Thank you for the presentation, and thank you, CFO Bala, for the clarification. I was going to ask about our ability to recoup some of this money, so it sounds like that's being addressed. I am curious if there were some categories of payments or expenditures that lended themselves to being considered unallowable more often than others, or more prone to mistakes, whether it's food purchases or furniture purchases. I know that there was a common thread in your sampling of the data to suggest maybe certain types of purchases were creating issues more often than not.
Yeah, I think consulting and professional services was the category that is not pre-authorized that was most often or had the highest dollar amount for the direct payments.
Mr. Winston.
Can you talk about the timeline of this audit, and then specifically, I guess, CFO Bala, when it was completed, when did we start rolling out some of the changes?
Our scope was fiscal year 21. We made our recommendations, a few months ago, and I know that Department of Finance had most of them already implemented. I think by March we're going to help them learn how to use our new mission mark system to upload the supporting document in show. So our dashboard will reflect that the recommendations have been implemented.
And one other recommendation was to bring in third-party vendors was it to audit the Oracle system or to make system upgrades?
Oh, no, I apologize. So a third-party vendor created the dashboard that is pulling some inaccurate data. And our concern there is if departments can't rely on the data, if they look at it and they think, well, this should have been allowable, then they won't use it to actually reduce the number of direct payments, which is the behavior we want to see. So the recommendation is to just tweak the coding on the current dashboard report.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? I do have one. I mean, you said that, CFO Ball, you mentioned that a lot of the recommendations have already been implemented or on their way. The one that seems to be kind of the easiest low-hanging fruit is the one around having department heads approve direct payments. Is that in place?
Ms. Carter, you want to come answer that one? We are working with so there's two ways in which department heads can approve on direct payments. One is the actual disbursement form itself. The other is through Oracle when it comes back through Oracle approval process to sign off. So we've asked that the department heads be on one of those authorizations, so either on a physical sheet or the Oracle sign-off process. And the team is working with FSS to make sure that the department heads who are not signing off on physical sheets will be included in the hierarchy to sign off in the Oracle process.
Right, that is correct. Yolanda Carr, Department of Finance. As CFO Bala mentioned, we are working to make sure that all of our forms and everything that we get on direct disbursement includes a department head signature. As we entered the pandemic, we moved to DocuSign. So when we were in person, you had a lot of signatures that were wet signatures. So he is correct. We are moving towards making sure all the commissioners will sign off on every direct payment that we have.
And then, Ms. Noble, I mean, in terms of that recommendation, do we feel like that would at least kind of be the best big first filter on this?
Well, I think the best big filter is requiring departments to go through the micro purchase.
Gotcha. Okay.
So if we reduce the number, but we wanted to make the direct pays still a little bit more painful for departments. So if department heads are required to authorize them, then maybe we can start to change some of the behavior, because it's a lot of work for finance to process these right now.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Thank you. Other questions on this particular report? All right, so with that, let's go ahead and I'll entertain a motion on this paper so that we can dispense with it. I guess it's a motion to file?
Accept and file.
Accept and file. All right, I'll make that motion. Is there a second? Second by Winston. If there's no further discussion, let's open that vote, please.
Vote is open. Everyone, please vote. The vote is closed. Right, 6 yeas. Oh, go ahead. 6
yeas, 0 nays. Motion carries. This item is accepted and filed. All right, the next item, I'll read the caption, is item 22-C5062, a communication from Danielle Hampton, Chair, Audit Committee, submitting number 20.07, follow-up review, Office of Contract Compliance Audit. Ms. Noble, are you going to be doing this one?
Yes.
Okay.
So actually, Lindsay Kuhn, one of the auditors on the project, will walk through our presentation. And this is the report we did following up on our June 2021 audit of Office of Contract Compliance. The Audit Committee directed us to do some additional test work based on hard copy documents that we couldn't access when both of our offices were on mandatory telework.
Thank you. And as she's coming up, I'm just going to ask, I mean, we are almost into hour 2 of the meeting, and this is only the second paper so to the extent that you can move through this at a reasonable pace, I appreciate that.
Certainly. Good afternoon, council members. Thank you for your time today. I promised to have my timer up here, so I will try and keep it moving. So as Amanda stated, this was a follow-up to our original audit released in June of 2021. I am Lindsay Kuhn. I was the Senior Performance Auditor on this audit, and also Myra Hagley, Senior Performance Auditor, worked on this audit along with Stephanie Jackson, our Deputy City Auditor, and Amanda Noble, our City Auditor. We appreciate the courtesy and cooperation of the Office of Contract Compliance staff throughout the audit and follow-up. Our original audit objectives assessed whether resources and controls were in place for the city to meet its diversity goals. As part of evaluating the controls, our follow-up evaluated whether the office followed its certification and contract monitoring processes. To monitor whether the city is meeting its diversity goals, contract compliance needs complete and accurate contract and task order information. This follow-up review tested whether the office's files contained the required documents to support, number one, certification decisions, and number two, subcontractor participation. Our scope for the follow-up matched our initial audit scope. Both focused on contract compliance's certifications, processes, and contracts active as of November 2020. Our audit methods included reviewing a sample of 23 certification files for documents required by the office's application, and reviewing the 47 contract and task order files that we identified in our initial audit. These files had different subcontractors listed in PRISM, the office's software, versus procurement's files. This slide shows Exhibit 1 from page 12 of the original audit report. Contract compliance's mission is focused on non-discrimination. Two of its duties are, number one, certifying small, minority-owned, and female-owned businesses, and number two, monitoring contracts and task orders under the Equal and Small Business Opportunity Programs. The office's mission and enabling legislation does not mention anti-corruption, and staff stated this is not in their scope. However, having a certification program helps to mitigate this risk by ensuring that qualified businesses participate on city contracts. Monitoring contracts and task awards post-award also mitigates the risk of political interference in subcontractor selection. During our original audit, we found that contract compliance had several controls in place. The office met several best practices, including participating in the Unified Certification Program, having a certified vendor database, monitoring contracts with minority participation, and using software to track contractor and subcontractor payments. Contract compliance also reported annually on certain indicators in the city's budget book and to the Federal Aviation Administration. As previously noted, we sampled 61 contracts and task orders in our original audit. We compared the subcontractors between the office's software and procurement's files. 47 of these 61 files, or 77%, had different subcontractors. We were unable to follow up on those discrepancies at the time because we could not access the hard copy files. The office has also followed up on several of our initial recommendations since our first audit, including automating their certification application. The results of our follow-up are consistent with the findings in our initial audit. Both reflect contract compliance's challenges in receiving complete certification and contract documentation. This documentation is necessary to ensure the city is meeting its diversity goals. In our follow-up, we reviewed a sample of certification and contract files. For certification, contract compliance evaluates applicants against city code criteria. The office does this using information submitted by applicants for small, minority, and female-owned business status. For subcontractors, documentation to support subcontractor participation was available for some contracts and task orders. Additional subcontractor documentation would better ensure compliance with city code. For certifications, the office evaluated firms against 5 pieces of criteria from city code. This is mainly done via an application form. We tested a sample of 23 certification files for companies certified as a small, minority, or female-owned business. 12 applications were missing at least one required document, but the office told us these files contained other information used to evaluate whether firms met the code criteria. The files contained information to address 99% of the 374 required attachments and 98% of the 609 questions that we reviewed. The office's director agreed with our previous recommendations related to certifications. These included automating the application and working with the software vendor to track application submission and decision dates. Since our initial audit, Contract Compliance automated the certification process. Using the software should improve record keeping and require that companies fill out all application fields. Per City Code, Contract Compliance must approve any changes to the original subcontractor plan in writing. This applies only to contracts under the Equal Business Opportunity Program. We found, however, that the office's contract and task order files often did not contain the original subcontractor plan. This could be partly due to the fact that procurement and other stakeholder departments do not consistently share documentation, as we found in our initial audit. Procurement and the Office of Contract Compliance agreed with our recommendation to establish a process for communicating updates and to creating a repository for contract and task order related files. There is also a different office process for adding a new subcontractor rather than substituting or replacing a prior one. Contract compliance staff told us that in this case, primes can add subcontractors via an information form. The information form, however, did not include information such as who submitted the request, who reviewed the form, approval from contract compliance, or any information supporting that this subcontractor would not replace or substitute an existing subcontractor. This slide shows Exhibit 1 from page 6 of the memo. For the follow-up review, we tested the 47 contracts and task orders from our initial sample of 61. We looked at Contract Compliance's hard copy files for these 47 to reconcile the differences between subcontractors identified in the office's software and those in procurement's files. The office's hard copy files contain documentation that supported the subcontractors in their software for 14 of the 47 contracts and task orders. For the other 33 contracts and task orders, we could not find a subcontractor plan or a substitution form to support all of the differences. As you can see on the graphic, we did find that 3 had documentation for some, but not all of the subcontractor differences. In addition to the information form mentioned previously, Contract Compliance also told us that it does not require a subcontractor change approval if the city adds a new trade to the existing award. They told us this is considered an addition rather than a change to the subcontractor plan. Office staff told us that 31 of these 33 contracts and task orders that were still missing documentation after our hard copy review were due to subcontractors who had trades added after award. They did not provide supporting documentation. The Contract Compliance Director agreed with our previous recommendations to work with AIM and the software vendor to integrate Oracle with the contract monitoring software and to store all contract and task order related documents in their contract monitoring software. These recommendations should improve record retention and resolve discrepancies. The next slide shows our new recommendations from the follow-up. These 2 recommendations are in addition to the 10 recommendations from our initial audit. One recommendation was to OCC and the other was to the Office of the Inspector General. Management agreed with both recommendations. We recommend that number 1, the Contract Compliance Director should document approval of changes, including additions, to the subcontractor plan consistent with City Code requirements. And number 2, we recommend that the Office of the Inspector General should periodically review post-award subcontractor usage to ensure fairness and subcontractor participation and to mitigate the risk of political involvement in subcontracting. Thank you for your time and attention. You can find the full follow-up memo and the initial audit at the link provided, and we're happy to answer any questions.
All right. Before I entertain questions from my colleagues, does anyone from the administration have a response to the findings or the recommendations?
Good afternoon. Bruce Bell, Interim Director, Mayor's Office of Contract Compliance, and we're in full agreement with the recommendations.
Thank you. Colleagues, any questions? All right, there's a motion from Mr. Shook to accept and file, seconded by Councilmember Bakhtiari. If there's no further discussion, let's open that vote, please.
1 minute. Vote is open.
Winston is an aye.
vote is closed.
It should be 5 yeas, right, if you count.
It populates after we close it.
All right, 5 yeas, 0 nays, motion carries. The paper is accepted and filed. And to the Audit Department team, thank you very much for both. Very thorough work. It's always good to be aware of this stuff, and I appreciate the administration's agreement with the recommendations. So let's get them implemented. All right, colleagues, it is now 3:30. We still have our full agenda, so I'm going to try and move us through as quickly as possible. So I'm going to ask y'all's cooperation as we go. The first item is a consent agenda. I'm going to ask the legislative staff to read them in for us, and then we will dispense with them next cycle. Ms. Simpson-Wright.
Item number 3 is 22-01327, an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to pay outstanding invoices for COVID-19 cleaning services on behalf of the Department of Public Works, Office of Fleet Services for services rendered by ATO Cleaning and Disinfectant Service, LLC from December 22nd, 2021 through January 4th, 2022, in an amount not to exceed $29,650.08. All invoices to be charged and paid from the accounts listed below. Item number 4 is 22-01328, an ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to amend the fiscal year 2023 general fund budget to create additional office account numbers, to create additional department organization account numbers, to rename existing office account numbers within the Oracle financial system, to transfer personnel, to transfer contractual obligations for the Department of City Planning. Item number 5 is 22-01329, an ordinance to ratify services rendered in connection with Agreement FC 104-99A Emergency Catering for the City of Atlanta with Carlisle's Catering beginning April 15, 2022, and to authorize the mayor or his designee to exercise the first renewal option under the agreement on behalf of the Department of Public Works for a term of 1 year, retroactively effective from April 15, 2022 through April 14, 2023, to execute the First Amendment to the Department of Transportation, to add the Department of Transportation and the Department of Watershed Management as authorized users, and to add funding in an amount not to exceed $8,000 on behalf of the Department of Watershed Management, Department of Transportation, and the Department of Public Works in accordance with Section 2-1163, subsection C of Article 10, Procurement and Real Estate Code of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances. All contract work will be charged and paid from the fund, department, organization, and account numbers listed. Item number 6 is 22-01330, an ordinance to ratify services rendered in connection with Agreement FC 10499B, Emergency Catering for the City of Atlanta with Goldberg's Concession Corporation beginning May 1st, 2022, and to authorize the mayor or his designee to exercise the first renewal option under the agreement on behalf of the Department of Public Works for a term of 1 year, retroactively effective from May 1st, 2022 through April 30th, 2023, to execute the First Amendment to add the Department of Transportation and the Department of Watershed Management as authorized users, and to add funding in an amount not to exceed $80,000 on behalf of the Department of Watershed Management, Department of Transportation, and the Department of Public Works in accordance with Section 2-1163, subsection C of Article 10, Procurement and Real Estate Code of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances. All contracted work to be charged and paid from the fund, department, organization, and account numbers listed. Item number 7 is 22-01331, an ordinance correcting the funding source in Ordinance 21-00871 adopted by Atlanta City Council on November 15, 2021, and approved per City Charter Section 2403, November 24, 2021, transferring $35,000 from the District 6 carry-forward account to the Capital Finance Fund to assist with renovations at Fire Station 19 in Virginia Highland. Item number 8 is 22-01332, an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee to amend Section 14626B, C, D, E, F, and G of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Atlanta so as to change the ad valorem tax rate of real and personal property for the general levy, debt levy, city parks levy, school operating levy, school debt levy, the special tax district levy, and the special service district levy, to provide that the tax rates established herein shall remain fixed each year until amended or repealed. And the final item, which is the walk-in, is ELMS number 29579, an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee adopting the fiscal year 2023 proposed budget to include all funds and for other purposes.
All right, thank you, Ms. Kempson-Wright. Colleagues, these require no action. They will be before us next cycle. Moving on to the regular agenda, ordinances for second read. The first item is 22-01263. There is a substitute that we need to bring Ford.
Second.
There's a motion from one, second from Shook to bring forward the substitute. Let's go ahead and open that vote. I'll go ahead and read in the caption. It's a substitute ordinance by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the Chief Financial Officer or his designee to amend the FY 2022 General Fund Budget and Capital Finance Fund Budget by transferring funds in an amount not to exceed $350,000.00 by anticipating and appropriating funds to and from the accounts listed below, and for the purpose of funding projects and programs that span across multiple fiscal years and for other purposes. The substitute reduces the amount to $350,000 and removes one of the projects. Is there any question on the motion to bring forward the substitute? If not, let's take that vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays. The motion carries. The substitute is now before us. From the department, I believe Ms. Sitterfall will be speaking to this. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, council members. Janet E. Sitterfall, Department of City Planning. This is a transfer of $350 from the FY22 General Fund to the Capital Fund in order to preserve the funding for two projects, two multi-year projects that DCP is undertaking. The first one is the Housing Innovation Lab, which is recently established to explore some new options for affordable housing and multi-use development on vacant city-owned land. And there's a $200,000 total that needs to be preserved for pre-development work on this city-owned vacant land. The second is the Chattahoochee Riverlands project. As you all know, we recently signed yesterday legislation to acquire the Chattahoochee Brick Company. And so this is all part of the more comprehensive study that we began several years ago with ARC and Cobb County, and we are looking to preserve $150,000 to continue that multi-year visioning process for that project. The substitute, of course, as you know, was needed to remove $150,000 for short-term rental, which is going to be covered under our FY23 general fund budget.
Questions from my colleagues? There's a motion from Dozier to approve on substitute, seconded by Bakhtiari. If there's no further discussion, let's open that vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays. The motion carries. This item is approved on substitute. Thank you, Ms. Siddle.
Thank you very much.
All right, 22-01264, an ordinance by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to waive Section 2-1163C, Article 10 of the Procurement and Real Estate Code of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances to ratify services rendered in connection with FC 9013 Cost Allocation Consulting Services with MGT of America, Inc., on behalf of the Department of Finance, to enter into Amendment Number 1 on a month-to-month basis for a period not to exceed 4 months effective from April 14, 2022 through August 14, 2022, an amount not to exceed $95,930.00. All contracted work to be charged to and paid from the Fund Department Organization account number listed and for other purposes. Ms. Carr.
Good afternoon again, Yolanda Carr, Department of Finance. This is an ordinance for indirect cost, and so we're doing it month to month because we have to have the report in June, so procurement recommended that we do month to month until we can get the contract awarded to the person that was awarded it during the RFP.
There's a motion from Shook to approve. Is there a second? Second by Bakhtiari. If no further questions, let's open the vote, please.
Vote is open. The vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays. The motion carries. This item is approved. Thank you. Okay, next item, 22-01266.
As listed.
An ordinance by Councilmember Matt Westmoreland, substitute. We need to bring forward a substitute. Motion by Bakhtiari, second by Shook. Oh my gosh. Supplementing the restated and amended Master Bond Ordinance of the City of Atlanta adopted on March 20, 2000. Legislation listed as previously amended and supplemented to provide for the establishment of the 2022 Airport Commercial Paper Program in connection with the issuance by the City of Atlanta of its third lien Airport General Revenue Commercial Paper Notes and second lien Airport Facility Charge and Passenger Facility Charge and third lien Airport General Revenue Commercial Paper Notes from time to time in support of the airport's project and Commerce Authority and for the purpose of financing on an interim basis in whole or in part the cost of the planning, engineering, design, acquisition, construction, and equipping of certain improvements to Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport, to authorize the issuance by the City of Atlanta of its third lien airport general revenue commercial paper notes, Series M, Series N, and Series O, and 2, second lien airport passenger facility charge and third lien airport general revenue commercial paper notes, Series M, N, and O, in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $950 million outstanding at any time, to designate the initial letter of credit providers with regard to the 2022 airport commercial paper program, to authorize the form of letter of credit and reimbursement agreements and related fee agreements for the repayment of advances made on the city's behalf in regard to the Series M notes, Series N notes, and Series O notes, to designate the initial commercial paper dealers and issuing and paying agent, to approve the forms of an issuing and paying agency agreement, commercial paper dealer agreements, and certain other agreements in connection with the Series M notes, Series N and O notes, to authorize the preparation, distribution, and use of an offering memorandum in connection with the offering for sale of the Series M, N, and O notes, to authorize the City of Atlanta general revenue bonds and City of Atlanta passenger facility charge and subordinate lien general revenue bond Series M, N, and O to be issued if and to the extent required to pay the principal of and accrued interest on the Series M, N, and O notes at maturity, all to the extent deemed to be in the best interest of the city by the finance officer and for other purposes. Let's open the vote to bring forward the substitute. Motion by Shook, second by Bakhtiari. No?
Yes. Councilmember, is there a way that we can make the motion to bring both 11 and 16 together? There are two substitutes, and we take them in tandem.
If there's no objection, we will do that. And 16. Oh, I think I'm going to cry when I see the. Is it 1271? Oh, Lord.
1271.
Okay. Ordinance by Councilmember Michael Julian Bond is substituted by Finance Executive. This would be a good time for a bathroom break, folks. No, I got it. I don't mind. Supplementing the restated amended master bond ordinance of the cup of coffee. City of Atlanta adopted on March 20, 1896 as previously amended and supplemented, providing for the issuance by the City of Atlanta of its airport general revenue bonds and the airport passenger facility charge and subordinate lien general revenue bonds in the combined aggregate principal amount of not to exceed $700 million, comprised of City of Atlanta Airport General Revenue Bond Series number listed, City of Atlanta Airport General Revenue Bond Series 2022B, City of Atlanta Airport Passenger Facility Charge and Subordinate Lien General Revenue Bond Series 2022C, and the City of Atlanta Airport Passenger Facility Charge and Subordinate Lien General Revenue Bond Series 2022D, and together with the Series 2022A, the 22B, and 22C bonds, altogether the Series 2022 bonds, providing funds for the purpose of, among other things, financing or refinancing in whole or in part the cost of planning, engineering, design, acquisition, equipment, and construction of certain improvements to the Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, providing for a reasonably required debt service reserve, providing for the forms of and authorizing the execution of said Series 2022 bonds, providing for the rights of the holders in said Series 2022 bonds, authorizing and approving the preparation, use, and distribution of a preliminary official statement and a final official statement in connection with the offer and sale of said Series 2022 bonds, granting the chief officer, the city finance officer, or airport manager the authority to deem final the preliminary official statement for purposes of Securities and Exchange Commission rule number listed, granting the chief officer, the city finance officer, or airport manager the authority to approve and execute a final official statement, authorizing the execution of a continuing disclosure agreement, a bond purchase agreement, and certain other agreements in connection with said Series 2022 bonds, and providing for incidental action, authorizing the negotiation and purchase of a municipal bond insurance and the selection of a bond insurer with respect to all or a portion of said Series 2022 bonds, if determined to be in the best interest of the city, designating a paying agent and bond registrar, providing for severability, authorizing certain officials and employees of the cities to take all actions required in connections with the issuance of said Series 2022 bonds, providing certain details, other details with respect thereto, providing an effective date and for other related purposes. Someone was paid by the word. All right, we have a motion to bring forward the substitutes on both items. If there's no further discussion, let's open that vote, please. Wow.
Vote is closed.
All right, 6 yeas, 0 nays. That motion carries. The substitutes are before us. Mr. Bala.
Yes, good afternoon, council members. So the papers you have before you are ordinances to allow for a bond transaction at the airport. So the item number 16 is a new money transaction, not to exceed $700 million. That is essentially taken out, a majority of which will be taken out the prior commercial paper program, as well as additional funds to construct the capital program at the airport. The other ordinance number 11, that is a continuation of the short-term borrowing, the commercial paper program, that will be taken out. So those are both needed in conjunction for the airport's CIP program. I see Chief Financial Officer Brian Benefield, congratulations, in the audience if there's any questions to the airport directly.
Any questions? And do you want us to approve this?
Yes.
Go ahead and approve this.
These will be approved. Ask for a motion to approve. There will be another ordinance coming down, which is a supplemental pricing ordinance. That one is the one that will be referred to the special call meeting.
Questions for the CFO? There's a motion from Mr. Shook to approve on substitute both items. Is there a second? Second by Winston. Let's open that vote, please.
The vote is open. Vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays. Motion carries. These items are approved on substitute. All right, colleagues, without objection, I'm going to take 12, 13, 14, and 15 together. These are all an ordinance by Councilmember Matt Westmoreland authorizing a donation in an amount not to exceed $5,000.00 from the Post 2 at-large carry-forward account to the Shaking the Nations Foundation in honor of the 80th birthday of Reverend Dr. Gerald Durley and for other purposes. 22-01268 is another donation of $5,000 from the Post 2 at-large carry-forward account to the Atlanta Bicycle Coalition and for other purposes. 22-01269 is a donation of $2,000 to Midtown Neighbors Association and for other purposes. And 22-01270 is a donation of $1,000 to Hands on Atlanta for other purposes. Any discussion or questions on this? Motion from Shook to approve, second by Bakhtiari. Let's open the vote on these 4 items, please.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? Vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays. Motion carries. These 4 items are approved. Next item, there's a substitute. I will read the caption and entertain a motion to bring it forward. It's 22-01273, an ordinance by council members Bond, Amos, Hillis, Westmoreland, Lewis, Waits, Winston, and Dozier authorizing a payment in an amount not to exceed $30,000.00 from various accounts to the City of Atlanta Office of Cultural Affairs to pay for expenses relating to the 2022 Neighborhood Jazz Festival events and for other purposes. Is there a motion to bring the substitute forward? Winston, second by Dozier. Let's open that vote, please.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays. The motion carries. The substitute is before us, and for the public, the substitute identifies the amount of $30,000 for this effect. Any questions or comments on this paper before us? Is there a motion from any of the authors? Motion from Dozier, second from Winston. Let's open that vote, please.
One moment. The vote is open. Vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays, the motion carries. This item is approved on substitute. Next item is number 1822-0-1290. I'll read in the caption, and then we've got an amendment on this. An ordinance by Councilmember Liliana Bakhtiari to amend Chapter 114, Article 6, Division 3, section listed of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances to provide that where the Civil Service Board appeal has not been commenced within 18 months after receipt of the notice of appeal, the adverse action which is the subject of the appeal shall be dismissed without prejudice, and the employee shall thereafter be entitled to back pay and other relief afforded by section number listed of the City Code in order to provide an incentive to eliminate undue delay in providing employees with their Civil Service Board hearings, to provide that when an adverse action is dismissed in accordance with this amendment, the City of Atlanta may reimpose the adverse action so dismissed within 6 months of the date of dismissal pursuant to the procedures set forth in Article 6, Division 3 of Chapter 114 of the City Code and for other purposes. All right, colleagues, there is an amendment that needs to be attached to this that removes the superfluous if in the new subsection 8 of the code, and then is shown below. So would you like to make a motion to amend? No, you got to amend it first. All right, there's a motion from Bakhtiari to amend, seconded by Dozier. Let's open the vote to amend, please.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays. The amended paper is before us. All right, there's a motion from Bakhtiari to approve as amended, seconded by Shook. Very quietly. If there's no further discussion, let's open that vote, please.
The vote is open.
Six yeas, 0 nays. Sorry. 6 yeas, 0 nays. The motion carries. Item is approved as amended. All right, without objection, I'm going to take items 19 and 20 together, 22-01291 and 22-01294, an ordinance by Councilmember Liliana Bakhtiari to provide for the annexation of property located at 2234 DeKalb Drive, Decatur, Georgia 30032, into the corporate limits of the City of Atlanta, Georgia, pursuant to the 100% method, to extend the boundaries of the Atlanta Independent School System, to notify the Department of Community Affairs of the State of Georgia of such annexation and for other purposes, and to provide for the annexation of property located at 1162, 1165, 1166, and 1178 Oakfield Drive, Southeast Atlanta, Georgia 30316, into the corporate limits of the City of Atlanta, Georgia, pursuant to the 100% method, to extend the boundaries of the Atlanta Independent School System, to notify the Department of Community Affairs of the State of Georgia of such annexation and for other purposes. Motion to hold from Bakhtiari. Actually, yeah, we can do 21 as well. 22-01297. It's annexation of property located at 2004 Swayze Drive, Decatur, Georgia 30032, into the corporate limits of the City of Atlanta, Georgia, pursuant to the 100% method, and to extend the boundaries of the Atlanta Independent School System and to notify the Department of Community Affairs of the State of Georgia of such annexation and for other purposes. As is customary, we hold these so that the companion papers move through zoning and CDHS. Motion from Bakhtiari to hold. Second by Winston. Sorry. Open the vote, please.
Vote is open.
Sorry, not sorry.
Vote is closed.
All right, 6 yeas, 0 nays. Motion carries. These items are held. All right. Takes us to resolutions. First item, 22-03409. There is a substitute that I will read in, and then I'll make the motion to bring it forward. Seconded by Shook. 22-R3409, resolution by Councilmember Alex Wan, substituted by Finance Executive Committee, authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to refund customers for overpayments to water and sewer accounts in an amount of $221,820.63. All funds to be charged to and paid from Fund Department Organization account numbers listed and for other purposes. Let's open the vote, please. Is that fast enough?
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays. The substitute is before us. Motion from Shook to approve on substitute. I'll second by Dozier. Let's open that vote, please.
Vote is open. Will everyone please vote? Vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays. The motion carries. This item is approved on substitute. Next item, 22-R3410. I'll read in the caption. We do have an amendment. It's a resolution by Councilmember Liliana Bakhtiari authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the Department of Finance, Department of Watershed Management, Department of Aviation, and Department of Public Works to enter into a cooperative purchasing agreement number listed ADP Implementation and Integration with Automatic Data Processing, Inc., pursuant to Section 15 of the Atlanta City Procurement Code for Human Capital Management Systems and Managed Business Solutions effective May 16, 2022 through April 30, 2024 for a term of 23 months and 14 days with up to 2 one-year renewal options in an amount not to exceed $317,860.32. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from Fund Department Organization account numbers listed herein and for other purposes. The amendment attaches the Department of Procurement's Cooperative Purchasing Agreement designation memo. I'll make the motion to amend, second by Shook. Let's open that vote, please.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays. Motion carries. The amendment is before. The amended paper is before us. All right, is there anyone from the department to speak to this paper?
Yes. Wait.
Hey, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Alfonso Piñan, Department of Finance, Office of Financial Assistance. The resolution on hand is to authorize the continuation of services with ADP. We've been using ADP for the last 3 years for several services within the payroll department. Basically, we're asking for a contract for 2 years with 2 one-year extensions. The total amount for 2 years is $317,860. And ADP is a fully automated and integrated with ATL Cloud process, and has been working pretty well for the Department of Finance. Any questions?
Yeah, any questions for Mr. Panan? All right, motion from Shook to approve as amended, seconded by Bakhtiari. Let's open that vote, please.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays. The motion carries. This item is approved as amended. Next item, number 24, 22-R3419. Resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing amendment number 1 to agreement number listed emergency on-call debris removal services with Cirrus Environmental Services, Inc. on behalf of the Atlanta Department of Transportation, the Department of Enterprise Assets Management, Department of Parks and Recreation, Department of Public Works, Department of Watershed Management, and Department of City Planning to add the Department of City Planning as an authorized user and to add additional funding in an amount not to exceed $30,000.00. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from the accounts listed herein and for other purposes. Is Mr. Zaporinek here? Yeah. If you come up and tell us about this paper, please.
Good afternoon. Basically, it boils down to being able to use the money to remove trees that have been considered a nuisance. And a nuisance tree is one that's on private property, but because it's in very poor condition and it could fall in the right-of-way and cause damages or worse, we're not able to contact most of these properties either don't have anybody living on the property or we're not able to contact them because they're just an absentee owner. And so for public health, safety, and welfare, we need to be able to go in and remove these nuisance trees.
The amount of $30,000 seems rather small. I mean, for that purpose, is there a reason for that, or?
Well, we started out with a list of about 5 trees, and we ended up with, but we have more than that. But when we started talking about all of this, that's just what we said it was $30,000. We could certainly use more, but that's just what we were looking at.
I get you. So this basically adds y'all on, and then if there's more trees you find and you find more funding, we can always amend and add.
We would need to add more funding, yes, sir.
Questions from my colleagues? Motion from Shook to approve, seconded by Dozier. Let's open that vote, please.
The vote is open. Will everyone please vote? Vote is closed.
6 ayes, 0 nays, the motion carries. Item is approved. Next item, 22-R3420, a resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to exercise renewal number 4 for FC 7216 natural gas support services with the Georgia Municipal Association for Natural Gas Consumption Services on behalf of the Department of Enterprise Asset Management for a term of 1 year beginning June 12, 2022 through June 11, 2023, in an amount not to exceed 0.8 of 1 cent per therm for gas delivered under the Atlanta Gas Lights Rate GLL firm and 0.3 of 1 cent per therm of gas delivered under Atlanta Gas Lights Rate interruptible. All funds to be charged to and paid from account numbers listed herein and for other purposes. Go ahead, Mr.
Good afternoon, committee.
Good afternoon.
This is just a renewal for the agreement. GMA negotiates the best price for natural gas in today's deregulated environment with providers for the best components and rates and plans.
Any questions on this paper? Mr. Shook, please.
So it's a Russian invasion of Ukraine and the resulting sanctions on Russia, and then Russia's resulting, moves in terms of providing natural gas. Has that rippled its way to us?
Right now, we haven't seen anything relative to that ripple effect, but we will be looking at that with GMA, and they will negotiate the best price that comes forth to our presence.
Thank you.
All right, motion from Shook to approve, seconded by Winston. Let's open the vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays. The motion carries. This item is approved as amended. Next item, it was approved. All right, next item needs an amendment. It's 22-R3421, resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the reemployment of City of Atlanta retiree Matt Faulkner in the position of Facilities Maintenance Mechanic Senior in the Department of Enterprise Asset Management for annual compensation not to exceed $44,018.00 pursuant to section listed of the Charter of the City of Atlanta and for other purposes. There's an amendment in your packet, colleagues, that amends the legislation to update the Department org account in the second whereas clause. I'll make the motion to amend. Second by Shook. Let's open the vote to amend, please.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays. The amended paper is before.
The person reemploy Mr. Faulkner is because of his high level of knowledge within the field, and that's putting out the post for the position out and not getting the qualified applicants. So we're requesting to bring him back for this limited time.
All right, any questions? A motion from Shook to approve is amended, second by Dozier. Let's open the vote, please.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays. The motion carries. The amended paper is approved. Next item, 22-R3422, resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the Department of Finance to execute a quitclaim deed of release to reconvey the city's interest in certain parcels of land created by that certain subordinated deed to secure debt recorded in deed book 20037, page 217, in the real property records of the Office of the Clerk of Superior Court of Fulton County, Georgia, to West End Redevelopment Partnership, LP, in satisfaction of the security deed in the amount of $537,600.00 and for other purposes. Mr. Ball, I believe you're going to speak.
Yes, I'll speak to this. So this resolution is in association with Oglethorpe Apartments. In 1995, the city issued a loan for the construction and development. The mortgage was $536,000. In 2004, that mortgage was satisfied and paid off, and that has been confirmed by the city. So this quitclaim deed just essentially releases any claims that the city has against the property.
All right, questions? Motion from Dozier to approve, seconded by Shook. Let's open the vote, please.
The vote is open.
6 yeas, 0 nays, motion carries. This item is approved. Next item, 22-R3423, a resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the Department of Finance to execute an agreement for RFP number listed, arbitrage rebate calculation services with Hilltop Securities Asset Management, LLC, to provide arbitrage rebate calculation services for the Department of Aviation, Watershed Management, General Obligation, General Fund, and Tax Allocation District portfolios in an amount not to exceed $188,160.00. All services will be charged to and paid from the funds and account numbers listed herein and for other purposes. Had Mr. Knight speak to this?
Yeah, he's not going to able to make it today, so I'll cover this as well. So this resolution authorizes us to enter an agreement with Hilltop, who is the successful proponent for arbitrage rebate services. For the new council members, the arbitrage rebate services are required by the IRS for entities that issue tax-exempt bonds, and that is to make sure that the tax-exempt bonds aren't generating income. So it mitigates and makes sure that we're in compliance with the IRS requirements regarding tax-exempt bonds.
Questions for CFO Bala? Motion from Shook to approve, seconded by Dozier. Let's open the vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays, the motion carries. The item is approved. Item 22-R3424, resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute a sole source agreement for numbered listed and Questa customer information system maintenance, support, and related services. Sole source with Systems and Software, Inc. on behalf of the Department of Watershed Management for a term of 3 years beginning August 1, 2022 and ending July 31, 2025, with 2 one-year renewal options in an amount not to exceed $5,124,823.15, subject to and expressly contingent on the approval of budgets for FY 23, 24, and 25. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from the fund, department, organization, account numbers listed herein and for other purposes. The motion is to hold. I'll make that motion. Seconded by Shook. We got to wait for the IPER report, so let's open the vote to hold, please.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays. Motion carries. This item will be held. 22-R3425, resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute a special procurement agreement for contract number listed, Utoy Creek WRC placement with Cleveland Electric Company on behalf of the Department of Watershed Management pursuant to section listed of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances for a term of 12 months from the date of the notice to proceed in an amount not to exceed $3,329,379.00. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from the fund, department, organization, account number listed herein and for other purposes. We do have an amendment on this paper. It amends the legislation to add the independent procurement review report to the IPER report. I'll make the motion to amend. Seconded by Winston. Let's open the vote, please.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays. The paper is now amended and before us. Mr. Fletcher.
Good afternoon, Chairman Wong, as well as council members. I'm Quentin Fletcher, the Department of Watershed Management. The purpose of this legislation is to authorize SP-C-122-0307 special procurement for Utah Creek WRC UV replacement. On March 16, 2022, by the Department of Procurement, we was authorized for the special procurement. This special procurement request is to engage Cleveland Electric Company to provide construction services to remove the existing 3 UV disinfection system units, demolish concrete in the 3 UV channels, and take responsibility for the mechanical and electrical installation of 3 UV disinfection units at the Utah Creek WRC. The UV equipment has already been purchased, manufactured, and delivered to the Utah Creek WRC. The existing UV system at the Utah Creek WRC was installed over 20 years ago, 2001. The life cycle for UV systems range anywhere from 10 to 15 years. Currently, we're not able to operate the system in the automatic mode. This project is critical as the city must meet National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System requirements by the Georgia Environmental Protection Division. Under these permits, the city must maintain essential functions, systems to meet discharge limits, including the disinfection to protect public health and the water quality in the Chattahoochee River. Subject to your questions, that concludes my briefing.
Questions for Mr. Fletcher? Seeing none, is there a motion? Motion from Dozier, second from Bakhtiari. Let's open that vote, please.
Vote is open. Vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays. The amended paper is approved. Thank you, Mr. Fletcher. All right, that takes us to item number 31, 22-R3426, a resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee on behalf of the Department of Finance, Department of Watershed Management, and Department of Aviation to enter into a special procurement agreement number listed WorkDiva Cloud Basic Platform Systems with WorkDiva, Inc., pursuant to the Atlanta City Code section listed for implementation of an annual comprehensive financial report tool effective June 19, 2022 through June 18, 2023, for a term of 1 year with up to 2 one-year renewal options in an amount not to exceed $134,284.50. All contracted work will be charged to and paid from the fund, department, organization, and account numbers listed herein and for other purposes. Ms. Carr.
Good afternoon again. This is the last piece of legislation that I have. So this legislation is for WorkDiva. This is a software that is correct pronunciation.
I was dared to say it the wrong way. So.
Absolutely. So this is what we use to prepare our financial statements for the central audit, aviation and watershed, and all of our pension funds. So the contract actually expires in June, so we're actually getting ahead of it to do the renewal and to make sure that we go through the proper channels for making sure that we get ahead of this.
Appreciate your being ahead of schedule versus behind. Questions for Ms. Carr? Motion from Shook, second from Bakhtiari. Let's open the vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays. Motion carries. This paper is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carr. 32, item 22-R3427, a resolution by Finance Executive Committee to correct resolution number 21-R4275, adopted by the Atlanta City Council on December 6, 2021, and approved pursuant to City Charter Section 2-403 on December 15, 2021, for contract number listed, replacement of fire suppression system with Fire Systems, Inc., and for the purpose of correcting the amount listed therein and for other purposes. The department will speak to this paper for us, please.
Good afternoon, Councilmember Wan, the council members. This is the project of the fire suppression at 180 Peachtree. This was a joint effort after recommendations were made by DEEM and AIM at 180 Peachtree. It was decided that based on this assessment that this was needed at 180 Peachtree. And so we came before you in December, and it was approved. Since then, just trying to have contact with the vendor. January 28th, we were notified of the costs going up due to parts and labor. And so that's why we're here today requesting additional funds.
All right, so the change wasn't an error in the original legislation. It just was it's a new price, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so I'm surprised it's coming through in this form and not as a change order or an amendment to the original contract. Because we're not really correcting it, we're actually amending it. Ms. Kempson, I don't know procedurally, Ms. Kempson, right, if it matters.
Give me one moment. I'm just going to pull up the actual legislation. So it wouldn't be a change order because change orders are handled by the Department of Procurement, and oftentimes those are also legislated. This solely seeks to correct the original resolution, which will then transition over to the actual amendment that procurement will finalized for the contract.
All right. I mean, you understand my question, right? Typically, when we're correcting something, it's like a number was transposed, or what was that? Yeah. Versus this was, we got it, and then since that time, pencils were sharpened, and a new number has come out because of changes in price. And so,
You're seeing it should reflect a separate amendment then?
I think the proper form should be an amendment.
We have the law department here also can opine.
That's true. Ms. Robinson, thank you. I forgot about that.
Hi, good afternoon. Amber A. Robinson, City of Atlanta, Department of Law. And as I understand the question, I think, and is the question whether or not it is appropriate to amend a previous resolution in order to make the substantive correction as opposed to passing a new resolution, or if this is, or is that the question? Because this is a substantive change.
Is this the right form, I guess, is the question. Because to me, we correct, we have papers that correct when numbers are transposed or there was a date that was messed up and it was a Scrivener error. Versus this is different. This was the original contract came, the information was all complete, the paper was ready and ripe, and now what we found is afterwards there's been pencil sharpening and the dollar amount has changed because of inflation prices. To me, it should be an amendment, not a correction. But does it matter legally?
From a legal standpoint, the use of the term amended versus the term corrected is notwithstanding. It makes no difference. This could be done by amending or correcting the previous resolution as proposed here, or it could be done in a standalone resolution, which would just make that same substantive change.
Okay, so long as it doesn't matter legally, but I do raise that point, though. I do think going forward that we should think about the proper form on this. All right, is there a motion on this? I'll put forward the motion to adopt. Seconded by Dozier. Let's open the vote, please. All right, 6 yeas, 0 nays, motion carries. So again, I will just signal that this is probably not the preferred way of doing it. So going forward, I'd ask the administration to be mindful of that. All right. Thank you. Sorry for you to bear the brunt of that, but thank you. The motion carries. The paper is approved. All right. Next item is 22-R3428, a resolution by Finance Executive Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute sole source agreement number listed, CopLogic online reporting system with LexisNexis, CopLogic Solutions, Inc., pursuant to Section 2-1191 of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances on behalf of the Department of Police for a term of 4 years with 2 one-year renewal options in amount not to exceed $20,000.00 annually. All contractor work will be charged to and paid from the Fund Department organization and account number listed herein and for other purposes.
Okay. So CopLogic is basically a web-based solution that allows citizens to self-report certain information to the police department. We have seen successes in this. The citizens are allowed to do it on their own. They access this software via our web page, and it allows officers to focus on more serious calls as well as serious crimes.
Questions? Motion from Shook to approve, seconded by Bakhtiari. Let's open the vote, please.
The vote is open.
Come on.
The vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays. The motion carries. This item is approved. All right. That, I believe, concludes our regular legislative items. We did have a dual referred that was held in transportation, so we will not need to address that. And the other ones remain held in their respective committees before us. And then I don't believe any of the papers held in committee are coming off. Correct, Ms. Kempson-Wright?
That's correct.
Okay. All right, with that, that concludes our business. Are there any other announcements or information? I do have, did you want to say something?
I just want the record to reflect that I do know that 8 times 12 is 96.
That's been bugging you the whole meeting, hasn't it? Did you want to announce the solid waste? I don't even know what.
Ms. Kempson, when is the Finance CUC Solid Waste work session?
The City Utilities Finance Executive Solid Waste work session is scheduled for Thursday, May 12th at 10 o'clock a.m. in Committee Room 1.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
All right, any other announcements? I do have a budget-related announcement. So as you will recall, we brought the paper in today. The budget process starts a week from tomorrow, kicking off with fiscal condition of the city presentation by the CFO, and his team will be in council chambers. Just as a comment, as y'all can tell from my meetings, I try and run a very tight ship in terms of budget hearings, only because there are so many departments that come before us, and they are stacked back to back. So we kind of need to just stay on track. And there is, I think, sufficient time allocated for each presentation and questions, provided that we do stay within kind of the confines of that conversation. And what I mean by that is, let's focus on kind of the policy, citywide implications, operational, and let's resist the temptation to go into district-specific projects. You can have that opportunity to talk to the department staff either before or after the hearing. But if you think about it, if one of us opens that can of worms, then all 15 of us will want to do it, and we'll end up getting kind of bogged down on that. And the other thing that I will say is that the amendment process is it can be messy, as it should be, and that as you remember from the budget lunch and learn we did last week, if you want to propose something, please socialize it with your colleagues. Don't surprise everybody at the last minute, especially if it's a large ticket item. Work with Theo Pace, Mr. Pace, to think, work through them, because other council members might be pitching same things, and he can aggregate that and help with finding funding. If you do have something, you either have to take it from another budget line item or find a new revenue source. The last thing we want to try and do at this point is take it from reserves. Oh, and the CFO. Yeah. So just if y'all will keep kind of those rules of engagement in mind as we go, and if I will share this again at full council on Monday, as well as when we start next Thursday, as well as the first hearing, just so that folks will kind of keep that in their mind. It will really make this process more efficient, and it'll kind of relieve a lot of the angst that could happen at the very end, and draw that process out the very last day. So, and we don't want to be here until midnight, the night of that council meeting, or later. Any other questions or comments about that from my colleagues? All right. Okay. Well, that's it. I think that concludes our meeting, and we stand adjourned. Thank you again. We'll see you at full council. Oh, also, if you have not responded to aviation about the tour on Friday at the airport, please let them know. Thanks.